Hi guys, it's Rebecca Mara, and I wanted to do a video explaining somatic experiencing to those of you that aren't quite sure what it is, why you would do it, how it works, because if you haven't done it before, it's pretty unique. And I would say that it is one of the top two trauma healing modalities that exist. So there's EMDR and brain spotting, which is an offshoot of that, which I'll probably start doing again. But somatic experiencing is my favorite and it's my passion. And I'll just start with telling a little bit about why trauma does not get resolved in the body. So, our animal brain, which is brainstem, reptilian brain, that's responsible for fight, flight, or freeze. And normally, when an animal is being chased by a predator or there's a possibility of attack of some kind of major stressor, the animal is able to run to discharge the energy to get away. It's able to fight it off if it has to, or if that's a possibility, or to go into freeze and kind of play dead in order to alleviate pain, or to help have the predator lose interest. Actually, if they play dead, the predator is like meh, a little less likely to want to attack. So what the challenge in our human brains and nervous systems is that we have this prefrontal cortex, and that part of us is able to think about the future, the past, to reason. It's conditioned into what behaviors are appropriate, what aren't. There's that super ego. So we don't go into fits of rage in order to express things. We don't run away from a stressor. And a lot of times our stressors aren't physical, like they aren't happening in the environment. It's a little bit more complicated than that. So because we're not able to discharge the energies the way that an animal naturally would in the wild, it gets stuck in our body. So that's a lot of nervous system activation that can stay in the body for decades, or if not a lifetime. It depends on how big the trauma was, how frequently it happened. But somatic experiencing is designed to help discharge that energy from the body. And the reason why we're working somatically with the body instead of a top-down approach would be talk therapy. A lot of people do talk therapy and they're like, I still feel like crap in my body. All of this talking hasn't helped. That's because the part of the brain that's being worked with has nothing to do with that fight-flight activation in the nervous system. It doesn't influence it very much at all. So the language of that reptilian brain that goes into that fight, flight, freeze, along with the limbic brain, which is more of our emotional brain, it has more of the amygdala in it that senses danger. That danger sensing part of our brain can stay on, where it's constantly seeing everything as a threat. When we're with somatic experiencing, we're working with sensations a lot. And we don't need to know the story, which is pretty wild. People aren't used to that. They think that they have to talk about everything, but that doesn't resolve trauma in the body. So as we're working really mindfully and slowly with the sensations in the body, you're tracking, what happens in my body. Some people are clenching their fists and they don't realize it, or the breath gets really shallow, the eyes start bugging out. There's an agitation, which is more of that flight response. There's a shutdown or collapse where there might be a really low energy. All of these different responses are happening that a somatic experiencing practitioner can track, and they're kind of seeing what's happening in the body, but also you're sensing what your body's doing, but also what it feels and where. So a lot of people feel things in their throat, their chest, their belly, and that's all vagus nerve activation. And as we meet these sensations and are able to help discharge some of that fight-flight energy through the sensation, or through letting the body complete a fight-flight response that it's wanting to discharge, it allows us to, sorry, the screen just went off. I'm distracted. It allows us to discharge that energy through the body. The sensations will actually start moving. So the energy in the body will start moving where you're like, oh my God, all of a sudden my hands and feet have all this tingling or there's heat. And those are nervous system discharges. So sometimes people get gurgling in the belly. There's a settling that happens. There can be, sometimes people belch. There can be tears, which is more of that emotional part of the brain. But there are all these little discharges that happen as things get released. And that's what we're going for. We're going for the discharge of that old energy, that activation, that intensity that comes up when you're thinking about that traumatic event or something that's just stuck in your nervous system overall. What the coolest thing I think about it is that as we're tracking sensations, all this different stuff starts happening. Like you'll feel things in your calf or feel emotions in your calf that you didn't know you felt, or, all this activation is up here, and then all of a sudden something shifts to a different part of the body as the nervous system is working it out. It's so cool. Like you can feel and experience things that you had no clue about. And I remember, for years I would joke about people being like, where do you feel it in your body? Where do you feel it in your body? And I thought it was silly that people were asking that question until I learned the importance of it. When we're able to track where something is in our body, then we can start to release it. So sensations are the language of that reptilian brain, and that's what helps give us access to releasing things. Now, another thing that I think is really beautiful in the body is that it knows how to naturally pendulate. So it can feel a sense of activation and, or that trigger. And then all of a sudden the settling happens just automatically. The breath relaxes, something becomes metabolized. And one of the main parts of somatic experiencing is titration. This titration is super important. And what that means is we're not going full force to go re-experience the trauma. That only keeps that cycle in place. We're not having a big episode of catharsis. We're not talking about it. What we're doing is we're titrating between the present moment experience and what feels okay or what feels good, really taking time for the system to feel that safety and ground and resource, and then tapping into a little bit of activation in order to metabolize it. So you're letting that energy move through the body, then you might orient and kind of come back to the present moment, noticing what's okay, noticing that you're safe in the here and now, even though your mind knows that, your body does not. So we're going back and forth to being here and now, in the present moment, in safety, connecting to the things that are good and safe and healthy and grounding in your life, things that feel uplifting, beautiful, and then tapping into another little bit of activation. So we're going back and forth just really naturally so that little bits of the trauma can be released. Because trauma is a very overwhelming experience. That's why it's trauma. It's one of the hardest things that you could experience. It's super overwhelming. It's way too much. And when we break things down into these little bite-sized chunks, or we're able to kind of titrate back and forth, that helps the brain metabolize things. That titration allows the brain to discharge and move through something so that that activation isn't way too much. And then it can be metabolized. And that's what we want to have happen. We want it to get processed. And in somatic experiencing, there will be different ways of breaking up that trauma. I think of trauma as like this gray or black blob. A lot of people see things that way. That's the image. So it's, it's this wiring complex where everything, different part. It's a big complex of difficult energy that is just stuck together, and the brain sees things in a very rigid, stuck way, and what we want to do is break it up. So we'll be working with sensation always, but we also might go into different parts where it's like, okay, where do you feel that in your body? What does the body do when it feels that? What's the sensation? And we might track what's the emotion that goes with that. If this part of you could say something, what would it say? What would it tell us? What does this part need? So we'll be working with some of the mind and the meaning making, mostly with the sensation, but also imagery as well. So imagery can really help break up that really stuck, fixed structure in the trauma bubble in the brain. And it can help metabolize it just by looking at it from different ways, by using different parts of the brain to metabolize that energy. So that's SE in a nutshell. And it can be really beautiful, and the slowness of it allows this sense of just mindfulness, ability to be with a greater range of both pleasurable and difficult sensations without being reactive. It increases our capacity to experience good things, to feel safety and connectedness, as well as our ability to be with things that can be a little bit overwhelming and to release them. So to me, that increases our capacity to be present in our lives and to be present to whatever direct experience is happening without having to make a story about it. And I think that's really beautiful. So that's somatic experiencing in a nutshell, and I really look forward to working with you with this. There are some things that could resolve in a session, but a lot of times a number of sessions is important because a trauma is a really big experience to a brain and nervous system. So yeah, it's a beautiful process to explore and to experience, and I look forward to working with you. And have a beautiful rest of your day. Take care.